and welcome to another edition of Tanzania Today, your weekly program that explores and discusses Tanzania's role and position across the continent of Africa. I'm talking about East, Central, and Southern, and around the globe as well. Now, just recently, President of the United Republic of Tanzania, Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, officially launched JPM Magufuli Bridge, the bridge that is the longest across East Africa and one of the best in Africa. Now, we want to explore how important, of economic importance of this bridge, but also other projects that Tanzania has been implementing from the scratch to the very end. We have witnessed that over the last few years, there have been a lot of projects that have been inaugurated here in Tanzania that will be of a great importance, not only to Tanzania, but across the region, the continent, and the globe. Now, to discuss these issues, I'm joined by Dr. Richard Mbunda from the University of Dar es Salaam. Also, I'm joined by Dr. Belinda Chepchumba, who will also discuss about critical issues that Tanzania is playing here across the region and the continent as well. And Dr. Bravius Kayoza, who is a political and economic analyst from the University of Dar es Salaam. Now, to start with you, Dr. Kayoza, with Tanzania launching major infrastructure projects like JP Magufuli, Mwalimu Nyerere hydropower project, SGR, what are the socioeconomic benefits this bridge and other projects do have in the context of ensuring inclusive growth?
Thank you for having me. I think it's a very important program that we are discussing the relationship between infrastructure on one hand and infrastructure and development. I would like to start with the best definition today that economists give to infrastructure. Economists today define infrastructure as the mechanism in which the society distributes and then distributes on one side of the coin, but also measures value. So you have distribution on one side, you have value on the other in terms of economic activities within that particular economic spectrum. And of course, Tanzania has been doing great things in terms of infrastructure investment. And one would recall that between 2002 and 2025, Tanzania has injected in the economy more than 645 billion US dollars in terms of infrastructures. That is a huge amount of money. Of course, one would say, how do you invest 645 billion US dollars in the economy while your economy is below 100 billion US dollars? Of course, that is an economic question, but what you are looking at the public investment that we have been undertaking, but also the private investment that we have been doing. And that is a huge amount of money. Statistics show that for every dollar that Tanzania has been investing in infrastructure, particularly in transportation, has resulted into an increment of $2 US at the national level. And then it has contributed in terms of the roads in rural areas to an average of $1.5 US. So $1 investment, $1 investment, 1.5. These are not my numbers, the World Bank numbers. The report in 2019 has vindicated as much. Now, talking about the bridge you have said, I think it is a very important economic infrastructure. One is that according to the World Bank data, they are showing that the bridge will will facilitate trade in the tune of 40% increase in terms of trade in the region. Here you are talking about the lake zone in Tanzania, but also in relation to countries like Uganda, DRC, and then you have Kenya in that aspect. But also there's what we call time lags in economics. That people waste time, and once you waste time, it has a correlation with the productivity. And of course, people have been, I think the local people are the ones to witness about that. It will be contributing immensely. I think that the time they've been using to travel from one point to another will be reduced by almost 7 to 8%. But also there is creation of jobs. It is estimated that more than 700 permanent jobs will be created, and more than 2,000 part-time jobs will be created in the near future. Lastly, not in terms of importance, but in terms of integration. That's very important, of course. Mwanza is becoming one of the commercial hubs in the region. Now, by having that bridge in there, what we are doing actually is that we are inviting more than 300 million people of East Africa to benefit the trade terms between Tanzania and the rest of the countries, and that will facilitate movements of people from one point to the other. But also, again, to be reducing the cost of production, particularly in the fishing industry and some other areas.
Maybe Dr. Mbunda, you have anything to add? We have witnessed Tanzania launching many major and projects that are game changers, actually. Talking about Mwalimu Nyerere hydropower project, talking about SGR, talking about ECOP, even though it's undergoing. How do you think these projects do position Tanzania in a better position to ensure inclusive growth?
Well, first of all, Tanzania is becoming a trade and logistic hub for the East and maybe East, Central, and Southern African region, because it is basically a gateway for many countries, for the many landlocked countries. But I would like to add a little bit to what Dr. Kayoza was saying, particularly on the benefits, the expected benefits of the recently, launched bridge. I remember, I think it was in 2020, the president, because the bridge has been named after J.P. Magufuli. So I remember he recounted a personal story, but it was a very saddening story. He said one day he was, traveling from Busisi to Kigongo, and he was supposed to use a canoe. And actually they invited him onto the canoe with his motorcycle, and he hesitated. When he hesitated, he decided to take another route, a longer route, basically. But when he arrived, in Mwanza, that's when he heard that the canoe has, capsized, and 11 people actually died. So you can imagine how that personal story motivated him when he was already president to ensure that, a bridge is being constructed there. So the bridge is basically connecting people, connecting districts, because we are talking about Misungwi district and Sengerema district, and it's basically connecting regions, Mwanza and Geita. So apart from the economic benefits and regional benefits that Dr. Kayoza is mentioning, we are also talking about how people will be able to enjoy social services, from, especially when we are talking about Mwanza. Mwanza is a city, a big city, and social services are available. Like Bugando is basically a referral hospital, and people from other regions such as Geita, in this case, will be able to access Buganda, very easily compared to how it was, So that one, but also we know that people over there are engaged in economic activities such as fishing, production of agricultural goods. So it will be very easy for them to, access the markets through the bridge. But again, we had a very interactive session with the former CEO. It's only today that we heard that Mr. Masanja Kadogosa is no longer the CEO. So that's why I'm calling him former, and I'm told he has, some political ambitions. So it is maybe for good, yeah. But we had a very interactive session the other time when he actually informed us that the bridge, particularly when you consider, you know, the integration between, you know, water transport, rail transport, and, you know, road transport. And, you know, there is a dry port in Mwanza, it's called Fela. So we're saying, for example, when cargo will be loaded from Fela, which is in Mwanza, the dry port, it can very quickly reach Uganda. I mean, it can very quickly reach Burundi and Rwanda. But again, DRC, which is about 762 kilometers, Tukura, Uganda, which is about 700 kilometers. So you could see how, you know, facilitative this mega infrastructure has been, even to the region.
Maybe Dr. Belinda Chepchumba, we remember in 2019 and 2020 there were a lot of problems related to COVID-19, and probably these were a major threat to the implementation of these major mega projects. What is your take on the commitment of the leadership in terms of the vision, and from the scratch to the end, and some of the projects were on their way to the completion? What's your take on the vision and the consistency and the resilience that the government of Tanzania has shown?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, of course, the COVID-19 and it was unprecedented issue that Tanzania as a country and also East Africa, we could not foresee. And so we received it at a very difficult position as a country, but I want to thank the leadership because of their resilience, and it really demonstrates their commitment to ensuring that we can bridge the gap in terms of infrastructure, as well as ensuring the economic growth of the country. It came at a time where we were not prepared, but it was due to the good leadership that we were able to come up with mechanisms in order to ensure that we can really continue and to ensure that this mega projects comes to an end. So it is it shows the resilience and the commitment in the leadership of Tanzania.
Dr. Kayoza, you have anything to add on that?
I think that is commendable. It is a commendable job that, as she has said, the government has done. There are three issues here I would like to highlight. One is what we call policy reversal in public policy. Sometimes you have a certain regime, once it is out of power, the next regime may decide not to continue with the projects that you are having. But the president, Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, I think, has shown the way in terms of how not to embrace, how not to do policy reversal, and the positive impact if you don't go that line. And I think if you are to listen, if you are to read, if you are to study on how public policies are done, economic policies are done, one of the effective ways of being effective and efficient is not to do policy reversal. So that's a score. Number two is that, as she has well pointed out, immediately after COVID-19 or during COVID and thereafter, many economies in the world were shattered. Of course, they had their shocks within the economies, but they had external economic shocks. And one of the serious shocks was that during the 2007 crisis, the financial crisis, you see, these big countries, the most developed countries, the G7 plus others, pumped more than $35 trillion in the economies. And what did investors do? They did not go to invest on the supply side of the economy in terms of infrastructure and the rest. What they did, they went to buy stocks in the markets. What happened is that the cost of capital hiked in those countries. So capital to African countries became more expensive. And then it was coupled with COVID-19. So what happened, many trajectories were showing that these countries cannot, the poor countries, will not progress in terms of mega infrastructures. But you see, few countries chose to stick to their plans. And I would like to use this program to say, according to the IMF review of April 2025, of course they give that report every year, it is showing you have 13 countries that have been able to fast track the project that they had initiated before COVID-19, and Tanzania is among 6 countries in Africa that have been able to do so. So even internationally, when you look at these metrics, you could see that Tanzania has shown leadership, has shown what we call agility in economic governance. The last one is that it is also true to say that it is not always easy to take these decisions. Lee Kuan Yew, one of the celebrated leaders, argued that at times blood has to be split when you are doing blood in terms of commitment for you to establish and develop and then commission projects, economic projects. And I think President Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan and the leadership at large have been able to do that. And that is a very good work, not only for Tanzania, but as my friends have well elaborated, and I like the example Dr. Mbunda gave about Dr. John Magufuli's case. I think it shows how these things are at the center of people's lives. So I think that question is very important. It's a very important thing that we see that in that light, and we embrace what we have done as a country, of course.
Dr. Mbunda, most of these projects were initiated under the previous regime, talking about under the late John Pombe Magufuli, and then eventually have been finalized under the 6th phase government under Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan. How does this prove Tanzania's consistency in terms of policies and commitment to implement flagship projects?
Yes, it is consistency in terms of policies and commitments. And we see it. For example, you'll note that the initial ideas about having, for example, standard gauge railway is actually traced to Benjamin William Mkapa and Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete, the third and fifth phase administration. So basically, that's where ideas were cooked, and then they came to be implemented by the fifth phase administration under Dr. John Pombe Joseph Magufuli. So what you probably note is, and of course have been completed under Honorable Samia Suluhu Hassan, the 6th phase president. So what is important to note is that, of course, there was, the difference between this administration is that probably, depending on the nature of the leaders, there was those who who were pro-infrastructures because they lived in them so much. And of course, you'd note that during the 5th phase administration, JPM, John Pombe Joseph Magufuli, was, in some quarters, they referred to him as, the empowered minister of infrastructure, because he served in the Ministry of Infrastructure for several years, I think close to 2 decades. Save only for, a stint that he served as Minister for Livestock and Fisheries Development, and Minister for Lands and Housing Development. He's been in the sector of infrastructure for too long, to take note of what is supposed to be done. And probably during that time, you'd say that he could not get proper access to the budget. And when he was president, it was an opportunity to make sure he implement those projects. But anyway, one important thing that is connected to the question that you asked, the 2 academics here, is that during the COVID era, for example, you'd note that many African countries in particular, or developing countries in general, there were shifts of plans. If you were planning to invest in mega projects like, the standard gauge railway or the bridge, or ports, because of or ports, because of the situation, the economic situation, countries would shift resources, taking them to welfare or to, you know, health emergency, you know, because during that time is when, you know, our concern was, you know, how we survive, you know, the pandemic. But in Tanzania, I think we were, of course, cautious of the pandemic, but we were very prudent, I would say, if I can use this word, to ensure that people continue to work, to generate income. And at the same time, the leadership was very resilient to, you know, stick to, you know, our initial plans to implement the projects. And of course, if I would add a footnote, I would say Samia Suluhu Hassan, the current president, has shown you know, that mantle of resilience to ensure that these projects are completed. Because in some quarters, people were saying, you know, these projects are, you know, white elephants. Eh? Some of them, you know, may not have, you know, the benefits that are intended for the society. So probably they were like lobbying, like, you know, I mean, you are trying to make the president focus on other things, to leave these projects. But they are actually strategic projects, and they have opened up the country. And as we said, they are making the country to be, you know, a trade and logistic hub. Yeah.
Dr. Kayos, do you have anything to add on that?
No, I don't have much to add, but I would like to underline one point, that when she got into power in 2021, our economy was around 60, in terms of GDP, 63 billion US dollars. Now, between 4 years, our economy has jumped to 85 billion US dollars. That's an increment of more than 20 billion US dollars. Now we're talking about that some of the neighboring countries have that size of the economy. She has been able to do that. And one of the reasons as to why she has done that, as they have said, she's stuck on the plan, and the injection, the investment of money that has gone into these public investment projects has been huge, to the point of making that growth happen, but not in terms of nominal value, but even in terms of the rate of growth itself. Yeah. She came to power when the economy was growing between 4 and 4.2%. We are talking about 5.6% of the growth, cutters of what she has been able to do in terms of infrastructure. Let's not forget that we're talking about this economic infrastructure, but she has been big in terms of the social infrastructure as well, water, health, education, and these have been adding value. Collectively, if you are to look at the money that the government and her leadership, despite frustrating these infrastructures, in social services, Tanzania has invested more than 11 trillion shillings in water, health, education, and electricity to the rural or to the local, to the rural economies, thereby bridging what has been, we have been making noise about it, that urban centers are snuffing rural centers. But now, because of these mega infrastructure for economic projects, as well as social projects, she has been able, of course, the government has been able to bridge that gap to a certain extent, not that much, we need to do more, but I think there is a light that this government is headed in the right direction.
Dr. Cheptumba, let's take a look at these projects that we have mentioned here, like Mwalimu Nyerere Hydropower Project, the Standard Gauge Railway, SGR, and now Kigongo Busisi. How all these projects do position themselves as a grand strategy in terms of national and regional investments to facilitate trade across, especially East, Central, and Southern Africa?
Okay, thank you. First of all, Tanzania is one of the countries surrounding a lot of landlocked countries. Where we have issues of, we have Rwanda. So Tanzania is one of the business corridors, and most of the countries within the region depend on Tanzania. So this major project is opening up the region. For example, we have this Busisi bridge. It is opening up the lake region areas and all the surrounding countries. So this major project not only assists Tanzania, but the greater region within East Africa. Yes.
Dr. Bunda, you have something
to add? Yeah. I wanted to add to what Dr. Cheptumba has actually alluded to. You know, sometimes it is difficult to to understand, you know, governments. Yeah? I remember there was this a discussion in Jamii forums, on Jamii forums, of course, someone was asking, why do ministers, when they take oath, you know, oath of office, they say, I will keep, you know, secret the proceedings of the cabinet meeting. Why is it that? I mean, why is it so? So you note that speaking from, you know, a high politics point of view, we are talking about national interest. Every country has its national interests. And of course, when they discuss those issues, they remain secret. Or sometimes it can be very difficult to understand whether or not there is a grand plan somewhere. But again, if I go back to our interactive discussion that I had with the former CEO of Tanzania Railway Corporation, Masanja Kadogosa, he was saying that we are basically talking about not only mega, you know, projects in isolation. We are talking about, you know, trade corridors that Tanzania is trying to make sure that they are opened up in order, you know, to become, you know, the trade and the logistic hub of the region. Okay, so for example, look at activities that are done at the port, you know, the Dar es Salaam port. Look at the, the railway construction, because we are talking about the central railway that is starting from Dar es Salaam to Dodoma, go to, you know, Mwanza and Kigoma, and then from Kigoma to Burundi, you see. So basically, it is saving that region over there. But I would also like to remind you that we also have this project, which is, you know, pending implementation, a project from Mtwara, the Mtwara port, which is, of course, is also being upgraded to Mbamba Bay, in order to save, you know, the 20 million plus population of Malawi. You know that Malawi is also a landlocked country, and it depends on our ports. So if we can build, you know, a standard gauge railway from Mtwara to Mbamba Bay, that means it will be easier for Malawians to collect their cargo from the Mtwara port to their country. So it is opening up, you know, trade. You know, so basically, and even the ECOP, the East African crude pipeline project over there, it's basically, you know, an attempt again to create a good linkage between, in order to, and our good neighbors from Uganda, they can be able to transport, you know, oil, you know, through our shores. That is Tanga. So it is. I mean, the plan is visibly there, but as academics, we can only, you know, allude to it because it exists, and probably it can be very difficult to see it formulated there because it rests with what we call, you know, the grand plan in terms of national interest.
Maybe Dr. Kayoza, and maybe I'll come back to you, Dr. Cheptumba. How do you gauge the success of Tanzania in terms of its role as a gateway for trade and business, and opening up and make sure that all the corridors, the trade corridors, are being fed well?
Yeah, I think we are doing very, very well. Of course, when you say very well, we don't mean that there are no challenges or that we shouldn't do more, but we are talking at what we are doing at the moment, at least. So these are the following issues to look at. Number one, given the infrastructure that we are investing in, from ports to railways to roads to bridges, Tanzania will be the gateway to 1.1 billion people by 2050. And you don't have any gateway in this region of Africa that will be accessing that big market. In the northern part, they will be accessing almost 600 million people. South Africa will be accessing almost 500, 600 million people. So Tanzania is at the center of that. And cognizant of that fact, it is doing whatever, everything that it is within its ambit to do that, and thereby creating opportunities not only for the business people in Tanzania, but also to the region. Tanzania, for example, in the last 4 years, trade as a percentage of GDP has moved from 37% to 44%. and it has the ripple effect to the rest of the region. Because remember, many countries are transporting their goods, services via Tanzania to their areas. But also in East Africa, for example, you have an economy, if everything goes well, by 2050, the East African economy will be around 2.6 trillion US dollars. That's a huge economy, because Kenya are planning to have a 1 trillion economy by 2050, Tanzania 1 trillion by 2050, Uganda 500 billion economy. So you will have that kind of an economy. But for it to be successful, the center is Tanzania. So 3 important factors here. One is the attraction of capital. So the central route for capital in this region is Tanzania. And capital here, in the economic meaning, we mean things that help or aid production. So everything that increases productivity is what we define as capital in economics, and that you can see it clearly from the investments we are doing. But 2 is production and also productivity. We're investing a lot, for example, in energy, and that is one of the biggest values when it comes to how countries develop. And energy is at the center of the cost of production. Now, if you reduce the cost of production because you're investing in electricity, what happens is that business will always thrive. And some data are showing that if Tanzania can do better in terms of energy, the ripple effect in terms of trade to the SADC region has a potential of increasing in the range of 5 to 7%, depending on the sector you are looking at. But also, you are talking about factors related to capital decentralization, and this is key, because we've been talking about the economies, but we've been looking at the center. We have not been looking at the peripheries. When you invest in infrastructure, what happens is that you aid people who are not at the center of the economy to access not only services, but to access other terms of business and trade. So if people have water access, if they have electricity access, they have good roads, you are making that thing to happen. The last one, which is critical, is market participation. You know, people have been talking about, we have been talking about incomes. We have been talking about jobs. But you see, jobs and incomes are a function of market participation. So it is very important to make economies, to make people participate in the markets that favor many people. And this you can see, because by rehabilitating, for example, Tazara, by investing in our aviation industry, by investing in our ports, what we are doing actually is that we are enabling a SADC region, we are enabling the East Africans to be active participants in the market. And thereby, what we are doing actually, we are decolonizing our economies. Because remember, during the colonial economy, it was one thumb rule was that you make most of the people not to be participants in the market, because infrastructures were skewed towards extractive mind of the economy. And now we want to, Tanzania, what Tanzania is doing is making it possible for many people to participate in the market in the country, but also to have those ripple effects in terms of market participation in the region.
Dr. Chepchumba, you have anything to add there, or he has finished all the key points?
I can add, you know, Tanzania is strategically placed within the region. And Tanzania is one of the countries which has the best laws. I'm now looking from the legal perspective and the policy perspective. We have the best laws in ensuring that, first of all, Tanzanians are the one who benefit from these mega projects. We have the local content laws. These laws were passed to ensure that these resources we first enjoy as a country and to benefit the country. And I'm also looking in terms of inclusivity. These major projects can help women and children to be included in terms of socio-economic growth. So it is, when we look from that perspective, we can see that these major projects will not only help the region, but will also benefit most of the Tanzanians. Yes.
If I can chip in with a footnote, particularly when we make reference to investments. You know, mega projects like those ones that we have constructed, and of course, you talked about the Mwalimu Nyerere hydro power plant. They are actually inviting investors, okay? We are talking about foreign direct investments. And of course, Dr. Chepchumba is talking about, you know, the legal environment, which is also inviting. That means in the long run, we will probably have investors who would have prepared to invest here rather than, you know, to export, you know, their goods. I mean, to import their goods from there. So basically, it is a plus. And, you know, an economy, and from the 1960s to the present, development economies in particular have been making reference to, you know, infrastructures as a driver of economic growth and economic development. And for that note, that means even investors are attracted by, you know, a country that is investing in infrastructures.
Welcome back. This is Tanzania Today. We continue to explore the role and the position that Tanzania plays across the continent and the globe as well. And today, with my guests here to discuss the way that Tanzania can maximize on the previous launched projects, and also how the impact that it has across the region and the continent. Dr. Munda, let's explore how these major projects do benefit or can benefit local Tanzanians as well, apart from only creating major impact across the region and the continent.
Well, I think the first thing is employment opportunities, because, you know, Dr. Chepchumba talked about our laws related to local content. That means there is, you know, a quota that is, you know, accorded to experts, but, you know, the other positions are to be taken by Tanzanians. For example, I heard the Minister for Works, when, you know, he gave his report about the Kigongo-Busisi bridge, he actually said that the supervisor, you know, of the construction of the bridge is a Tanzanian, you know, and you know, a graduate of the University of Dar es Salaam. And I've highlighted that because, of course, I come from the University of Dar es Salaam, so it is basically a plus. And we know that you know, our engineers, you know, civil engineers and others have been learning from these projects. So an assumption that I have here, not as a policymaker, but as an analyst, is that, you know, we have our people who are learning to do what, you know, the foreign companies are doing, because I know there was, you know, the constructor, I mean, the company that constructed the Kigongo-Busisi bridge is China Civil Engineering Construction Corporation, and of course I know it has also been given the tender to upgrade the Tazara Railway, but I think it is because of the good work that they did with the bridge. The bridge that is said to last for 3 generations, 100 years. So, but I think local companies, whether it is local construction companies, but also, you know, these small you know, companies that are dealing with whatever services during the construction process, I think they will benefit. But my hope, and I'm saying this boldly, is that maybe in the next several years, projects such as this one will be constructed by Tanzanians, by Tanzanian companies.
Dr. Kayoza, how can local Tanzanians capitalize on the progress that Tanzania is making in terms of the infrastructure? We have discussed about these major projects, but how do locals also are benefiting and can also benefit?
I think they are in two ways. The locals, or the Tanzanians can benefit from how the police directs the ways of the economy. Because when you're managing the economy, it's about how policymakers decide to make policies so that they can direct the policy subjects, the consumers of the policies in terms of the people. So that's number one. But number two is from what is happening in their local areas in terms of, as Dr. Mbunda has highlighted, in terms of whatever activities, economic activities they're engaged in. And I think there are a number of ways. Number one is what we call capital formation. So you talk about capital in macroeconomics, but capital at the micro level, where people are. And the central question in managing the economy is not about the sectors, as always. It is about where are my people. And one area is capital formation. Our numbers are showing in this country that capital formation in the local government is 5 times lower than capital formation at the center in the cities. Now, when you take these projects, if they are roads, for example, if they are bridges, for example, if it's electricity, for example, these add value in terms of capital formation because it's easier for the people to establish, to be innovative, to establish businesses and other productive activities. But we have to remember also when talking about these big projects, they must be connected to other sectors, and which we are doing, for example. One is agriculture. And we have seen in the past 4 years alone, Tanzania has expanded the size of hectares, irrigation hectares, over 400,000 hectares. And this is about almost 50% of irrigation sectors that we have been able to do in the last over 60 years of independence. We have done that in just for 4 years. And this is adding value in terms of our agriculture. And in economic terms, we say you have what investments that aid agriculture, but there are things that you invest in, which are not necessarily associated with agriculture, but they're very important, like these projects. But the other thing is jobs. And here we're talking about creating jobs from these activities, if it's production, if it is trade, business, and the rest. So you have many people being now being accommodated in these activities. Lastly, I would like to talk about the trajectories. You see, we are saying we want to have a $1 trillion economy by 2050. Let's remember our viewers, the first country to attain $1 trillion US economy was the United States of America in 1969. What does that take? To get a $1 trillion economy, meaning that you will be able to control, to get people out of poverty, actually out of poverty by 40%. That is a common rule, but you'll be able now to catalyze the rate at which employment is increasing. But you cannot attain $1 trillion economy so that to have those benefits if you're not investing in infrastructure. Associated with that is per capita income. When we were starting this millennium in 2000, per capita income for Tanzanians was about $360. Today we're talking about around 1,500. It means we have increased it by 4 times. To get a $1 trillion economy, meaning that you will have to have the per capita income of around $7,000. And these are not statistics. If you are able to invest as we are doing productively, efficiently, and effectively, that means people's income will rise. And once people's income have risen, what happens to the economy? Consumer spending expands. When consumer spending expands, that means per capita revenue expands. So the noises we have been making about tax collections, tax to GDP ratio has been very low. That means will be high, and thereby decreasing the amount of money we borrow from other countries. I think we have heard a lot of noise about public debt, which I agree that we have to contain that. And one of the ways is to do what we are doing so that people can have income and then do that. So I think these are the benefits at the moment, but I see the future where we will have a lot, a footnote. Let's think, no, we are doing it, but let's now push forward with speed about the PPPs, the public-private partnerships, because that will help government two ways. One, you reduce taxes to the common people. Two, you reduce the need for foreign investment, but also foreign aid. And I think the president has been serious about that. What we need is that technocrats now should move with speed. And I'm impressed by the executive director of the PPP Center, Mr. David Kafulira, with the good work that he's doing, listening to him and seeing what he's doing. He's reading the mind of the president. But I think to most policy thinkers, economists, development experts, that we should embrace that, because that will help much in terms of achieving the goals in terms of infrastructures, but also bringing development to the people.
Dr. Chiptumba, based on what Dr. Kayoza has explained, the role that the public is playing in the private sector as well, maybe based on the Tanzania's Vision 2050, the Millennium Sustainable Development Goals 2030, how do you visualize Tanzania maybe in a couple of years to come, maybe in 2050?
Okay, thank you.
Based on these major projects that we are talking about.
Yeah, I can confidently say that the future of Tanzania is promising in terms of economic infrastructure, and also in terms of connecting the region as a main corridor in terms of business and all the surrounding East African countries. And also, one of the strengths of Tanzania, as I said earlier, is the legal environment and the policy environment. The law is very certain and very clear in terms of investment, and this is actually encouraging investors to come into the country to ensure. And for example, previously there was an issue of dispute settlement. How do you settle disputes with investors? But clearly and currently, we have very clear ways of settling disputes in a very short time, and this is encouraging the investors to come in without fear that they might face a lot of challenges. And also, we have the reforms. We have major reforms that the president and the government is putting in place to ensure that there's a conducive environment for all the foreigners. And Tanzania is one of the countries within East Africa that it has opened up to foreign investment. So the future is bright for the country. And also Tanzania, in terms of, for example, let me look from the aspect of social and humanitarian aspect. Tanzania is strategically placed, and for example, when there is a dispute within the region, most of the refugees or most of the those who are running away from disputes, they come to Tanzania. So Tanzania is strategically placed, and all this can sum up to ensure that we are in a better position within the region to assist all the neighboring countries. Thank you.
Dr. Mbunda, maybe to finalize our discussion, all these projects that we have been talking about would have been impossible, or its sustainability would have been really not really satisfactory to that level, hadn't we have enough or reliable energy. I'm talking about electricity. Now here we want to talk about the Mwalimu Nyerere, Julius Nyerere hydropower project. How has this project helped to make all these things that we're discussing possible?
Yeah, I think that's really huge. The Mwalimu Nyerere hydropower project is a huge investment for sure. And one thing that I'd like to remind our viewers is that there were challenges when we wanted to implement it. And I remember, the big brothers out there were saying, no, it is, destruction of the environment, don't do that. But you can't have, investments, investments without having, sustainable power generation. Okay, so basically we are talking about energy security, and that project has enhanced our energy security. And you'll note that, for example, now we have this project of making sure that power actually reaches all the villages, and we know that there are several activities that involve power in the villages, okay? Like barber shops. We all want to look good, right? Barber shops in the villages and small towns. Without, power security, I think it would have been very difficult. So we have managed that. But another important thing that I want to talk, especially with regard to power, is that there are plans, basically, to ensure that we export power, like to Zambia. I know there's a project that is in the pipeline to construct an connector that will supply power to Zambia, which is, I'm told it is a 4,000 kilowatt will be transmitted from Iringa to Mbeya to Nduma and then to Nakonde, so that it can enter the Zambian grid. So basically, and at the same time, we also want to import power from elsewhere. So it is, you can see how it is basically, powering the region, the East African region. We want to import power from Ethiopia, but also we are supplying power. And I'm told it's not only Zambia, it will also be Malawi and Mozambique, you see. So you'd see how important, having, a big plant to generate power like the Mwalimu Nyerere hydroelectric power plant would help to ensure that we have what we call energy security.
Dr. Kayoza, rural electrification has been really a game changer. Even TBC, we got a chance to go to several villages across Tanzania to eyewitness how electrification of these villages do change people's lives. Maybe you have something to add on the sustainability and ensuring we have reliable electricity across the country. How is this beneficial, especially the implementation of all these projects and making them sustainable?
I think starting with electricity, it is vindicated economically that once people have access to electricity, it's easier to make them get out of power. Our numbers are showing that if Tanzania can attain the 10,000 megawatts in terms of production, it will be able to increase incomes in the rural areas especially. The increment will be between $200 US, $300 US within a year. So you are talking about, if you're talking about 1,500 today, 300 is almost 2,000 per capita if you're able to reach at 10,000 megawatts. So that's critical. But in the bigger picture, in the grand scheme of things, is that this infrastructure, energy sector, for example, will give you three important things at the macro level. Productivity will always rise, growth, and then you have efficiency. So these are very, very, very critical in terms of managing the economy. And hydroelectric, the Mwalimu Nyerere dam will be able to give you that. At the micro level, which is a question of sustainability, you will have two sovereign issues. One, you'll be able to have food sovereignty. I don't want to talk about food security. I talk about food sovereignty because you aid people. You're able to make people produce comfortably where they are because you have irrigation schemes and so on and so forth, because you have electricity, you have power. But then you will have energy sovereignty because now, on top of that, of course, we have other projects, and I would like to encourage the government to go fast in terms of renewable energy. According to IRENA, they're showing that Africa can produce 1,000 times more than they are producing in terms of our needs of electricity, of power. And that is clean energy, of course. So you need to do, I think we need to facilitate, to catalyze as much as we can in that aspect. And the last one is about value addition in manufacturing. Because without electricity, eventually you cannot have value addition.
Definitely.
And we are witnessing that at the moment. Because of electricity now, because of power generation, value addition in agriculture sector is increasing. That's why you are seeing what we call food security. I want to call it food sovereignty, is increasing in terms of percentages. If you look at the value of exports that we are earning from our food crops, it is increasing. And I think generally we'll be able to contribute a lot and to reduce or decrease the amount of money Africa is spending to import food. Today, 85% of our foodstuffs in Africa are imported. And that is not a very good thing at the continental level, but you can do that. Tanzania can play a great role, can become a food basket, not only for Africa, but for the rest of the world, courtesy of energy production.
So that is how Mwalimu Nyerere hydropower project is the game changer. On that note, we have to end it there. That's it for this edition of Tanzania Today. Catch us again next week as we continue to explore the role and the position that Tanzania plays in Africa and around the globe. My name is Nasa Kingo. Thank you very much for watching.